August 21st, 2025 Planning Commission hearing. I will call this hearing to order at 1:01 p.m. Ms. Carmen, can we please have roll call?
Thank you, Chair Wardlow. I'll begin with Chair Wardlow.
Here.
Commissioner Barnwell.
Here.
Commissioner Balke.
Here.
Commissioner DeLuccio.
Here.
Commissioner Wiscombe.
Here.
And Commissioner Peterson.
Here.
We have quorum. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's get started with preliminary matters, requests for continuances, withdrawals, postponements, or ex-agenda items. Ms. Arciniega, do we have any?
Thank you, Chair Wardlow. We do have one continuance. The item 2405 and 2415 De La Vina rezone and general plan amendment initiation is being continued from September 4th to September 18th. It has not been on your agenda yet, but the notices did go out because a rezone initiation requires a 20-day noticing requirement. So I just wanted to announce that for the public if they're following.
Thank you. We'll now move on to item C, review, consideration, and actions on the following draft Planning Commission minutes. August 7th, 2025 Planning Commission minutes, the Planning Commission resolution number 00625 for 460 LCL Road, the Planning Commission resolution number 00725 for 1230 San Andreas Street. Do we have any commissioner comments on the minutes or resolution? Are there any public speakers that would like to make comments on the minutes or resolution? Great. If no comments, can I have a motion?
I guess I'll make a motion to move the minutes and the two resolutions.
Second.
Ms. Carmen, can we please have roll call?
Thank you, Chair Wardlow. I'll begin with Commissioner Balke.
Yes.
Commissioner DeLuccio.
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson.
Yes.
Commissioner Barnwell.
Yes.
Commissioner Wiscombe.
Yes.
And Chair Wardlow.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, and that takes us on to item D, comments from members of the public pertaining to items that are not on today's agenda. Do we have any members of the public that would like to make public comment?
Thank you, Chair Wardlow. At this time, I don't have any speaker slips for in-person public comment. We do not have any participants online with us, and we did not receive any written correspondence under general, so I'm going to give it back to you.
Thank you. We will now move on to item 3A, the installation of erosion control systems at Sea Ledge Lane and Cliff Drive. The project requires a coastal development permit and CEQA determination. And we have Ms. Barbara Buckhart, project planner, with us to provide a staff presentation. Ms. Buckhart, the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you, Chair Wardlow and members of the commission. I'll start with the vicinity of the project. I have a couple maps here. On the left, it's shown in red. The site is located in the appealable jurisdiction of the coastal zone. And here on the right, it's shown in yellow. It's also located within the Arroyo Borough component of the coastal land use plan. The site is comprised of 4 separate lots. The majority is in the coastal bluff face, which is shown here in pink. It consists of, each lot consists of single unit residential development, as you can see here. This plan shows those 4 sites, but you can see here outlined in green, this is the area of work. Some landslides which occurred in this area. This is a larger image of that area. The middle area is what slid first, and these 2 other areas slid subsequently. This slide shows a few photos that have been taken over the past couple years. These are 2 of the different slide areas. And this is showing some jute netting that was previously installed. You can see older and newer versions of that. It just really didn't do the trick. So the project includes installation of erosion control systems to repair the slope failures. They consist of high tensile steel mesh netting pinned with soil nails. The nails are 25 feet long and embed back into the bedrock. You can see those here. The project includes subsequent hydroseeding of the area of work and repaving of the damaged road below, as well as a request to install cable guardrail fencing at the bottom of the area of work along the road there. The approvals required are coastal development permit and design review by the Single Family Design Board. And then I want to go look at the little background and see how this all took place. In June of 2023, the applicant submitted an application for an emergency coastal development permit to secure the bluff against ongoing soil sloughing and slides that were occurring despite the application of that jute netting that you saw. This was the area of the first request. Staff approved the request in October of 2023. Building permit was issued and the erosion control system was installed and that hydroseed was applied. Subsequently, we had more rain in the area and 2 more slides occurred on either side of the original failure. You can see those in yellow here. So the applicant submitted a second emergency permit to treat these areas in the same manner. That was granted in April of 2024. And similarly, a building permit was issued and the work was completed. And as is required with emergency permits, a formal application has been submitted requesting to permanently retain all the installed erosion control systems, permit the associated road repairs, and allow installation of a cable guardrail fence below. So that's the application before you today. It incorporates all the work of both emergency permits. And jumping into environmental issues, the site does include environmentally sensitive habitat area, or ESHA, those are the orange and green areas shown here, as well as a special status plant species, cliff aster, which is in this area. As such, a biological assessment was provided with the emergency permit application. The assessment recommended mitigation measures for impacts to the ESHA and the cliff aster, which included a specific seed mix for the hydroseed and post-installation monitoring, reporting, and contingency measures, including twice annual monitoring for 1 year. The assessment also confirmed that no nesting bird habitat is in the area of work. So in keeping with those recommendations, 3 biological monitoring reports have been submitted to the city so far. They've confirmed that all areas of work remain intact. The hydroseed mix and its application were completed in a manner consistent with the recommendation, and that native plant species are becoming established in the slide repair areas, including the cliff aster. So also associated with the assessment, staff has included a condition of approval that would require that recommended monitoring period be extended from 1 year to 5 years. This is to be in conformance with one of our coastal policies. And then we would also further extend the monitoring period if performance standards are still not met after 5 years. In terms of zoning compliance, the only zoning standards that apply to this project are those of setbacks. The erosion control systems are not subject to setback standards, and the guardrail fencing would be allowed due to its height. The project has been reviewed by the Single Family Design Board. They continued the item here to Planning Commission with the comment that the required findings could be made, and if the CDP is approved, the project would return to them for design review approvals. In terms of coastal compliance, there are 3 categories of policy that apply. I've listed them all here, but I'll go through each one separately. In terms of slope stabilization and protection, the emergency permits were issued to minimize risks to life and property, and the steel mesh netting was proposed only after the jute netting failed, so it's the next least damaging alternative. All areas of work remain intact as determined by the biological monitoring reports, and therefore the project has minimized landform alteration and maintains visual compatibility with the surrounding natural environment. In terms of the ESHA, the biological monitor has confirmed that the hydroseed was applied at the required ratio. And as I stated previously, an approval of the project, we would hope to condition to require twice annual monitoring for 5 years, specifically to conform to this policy. And looking at scenic resources, the mesh netting really allows all of these requirements here in blue to be met because it involves minimal alteration of landforms and allows for restoration of the native vegetation. And then furthermore, the project has also been reviewed by the SFDB, who found it compatible with the character of the surrounding area. Staff has determined the project is exempt from the California Environmental Quality Act per section 15301, and none of the exceptions to the exemption apply. Staff recommends the Planning Commission approve the project, making the findings outlined in section 9 of your staff report and subject to the conditions of approval in Exhibit A. And before I conclude my presentation, I do want to bring up one thing we discussed at the site visit. I think it's shown well here. One of the property owners that lives below the slide area mentioned that they had planted these small plants here along the road. I believe he said they were some type of cypress. So that is not part of the scope of work. It hasn't been analyzed by the project biologist. So I would like to add a condition of approval that we have the biologist look into the appropriateness of allowing these plants to remain. And if they're not appropriate, that they be removed. So just want to bring that up before I close. With that, I will conclude my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there an applicant presentation today?
We do have Ms. Jones here. She's available to answer any questions that come up, but she does not have a separate presentation. Thank you.
All righty. If you have an interest in speaking later on, we can accommodate that. So now we will move to public comment. Do we have any members of the public that would like to give comments on this item?
Thank you, Chair Wardlow. At this time, I don't have any speaker slips for in-person public comment for this item, though if anyone in the audience would like to speak, they can approach the podium at this time. I'm not seeing any movement. We don't have any participants online with us, and we did not receive any written correspondence for this item, so I'm going to give it back to you.
Great. Thank you very much. And I will now open it up to questions from my fellow commissioners. Commissioner Bauke.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I only have one set of questions on this, and it goes to the restoration process, how it's monitored, who's doing the monitoring, what happens if it's not successful on an annual basis, and to the 5-year term, what happens at the end of the 5 years. I've done one of these projects to keep a hillside from falling down on a UP right away up in Northern California. In most of the time, 5 years works. Sometimes because we don't get enough rain, the timing of the hydro seed and the rain and all this, it doesn't make it. And I was wondering what happens at the 5-year mark. Is there an ability to add another 5 years and continue this process till it really is there in existing and the plants hold and we get back to that state we're trying to get to for that hillside? Thank you.
Sure. Thank you for the question. So the project biologist is Storer Environmental, and they've been doing the monitoring, and they would continue to do so. Even within the first 5 years, if the plants are not taking root like we expect them to, then we would have mid-course corrections be implemented. I'm not sure exactly what those would be. I think it would depend on what is happening or not, what's successful and what's not successful, but that would certainly be addressed as early as possible. If at the end of 5 years we feel it's not substantially restored, then we will extend that monitoring period an appropriate length of time to make sure that it does, that the restoration is completed successfully.
I have a follow-up question. Am I correct that it seemed like it said that the owners are the ones that are doing the monitoring? At least I see references to entities that I don't know who they are.
The monitoring is being done by Storer Environmental. The property owners are footing the bill for that, if that might be what it's
Yeah, I'll go back
referencing.
and look at what it was in the conditions of approval.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll look back when I find the appropriate site.
Thank you, Commissioner Valke. Commissioner Wiscom?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Okay, so let's go, Ms. Burkhart, to the cable guard fencing. It's part of the set of drawings, but on site, it was, oh, we may not want to put it in. So is it required? Is it optional? I know you said a biologist would look at the cypress. What if the cypress needed to come out? Would you put the cable guard fencing in, or, I just want to get clear on where we
Sure.
are on that.
Commissioner Wiscom, the guardrail fencing is part of the scope of work.
Right.
As far as I'm aware, there would not be an option to not install it if the project is approved. We do have other mechanisms, such as applying for a substantial conformance determination to maybe reduce the scope of work. But I'm not aware, if the project's approved, then it's, as far as I understand, it's required to be installed.
It's required.
Yeah.
So is it required, did the biologist at Store require the cable guard fencing, or did, I got the impression the owner requested it?
No, yes, it's requested as part of the scope of work by
Okay.
the property owners.
So can we modify that so we're not adding additional, in other words, if it's fine with the biologist to leave the cypress in, and I understood they preferred the cypress to the cable guard fencing. They thought it was just a much better look. So if the biologist is okay with that, is it okay to exempt them from installing the cable guard fencing? Or can we make that a condition?
I'll defer to Ms. Arciniaga. Thank you.
Thank you, and through the chair, Commissioner Wiscom, so once they effectuate so the coastal development permit needs to have the scope of the entirety of the project, and that's in their entire entitlement. Once they effectuate that CDP, meaning they get it approved, they do design review and pull the necessary building permits, then they're entitled to do that entire scope of the work. They can do less than that, as long as it's not required by any, as you alluded to, like by a preservation or other kind of element. Similarly, you can, you can have a permit for a house and a garage or a shed and opt not to do the shed during building permit time.
Okay.
You can reduce your scope of work, in other words. And then it's still entitled if they wanted to come back at another time and install that fence. What you can't do is increase your scope of work.
Right,
Without
okay.
an additional approval.
Yeah.
However, if there are minor changes to what Ms. Burkhart was saying, that does need to be looked at by the city. So changes to a coastal development permit entitlement, we could look at it depending on what kind of change. We would first confirm if it needed to be adjusted through a substantial conformance determination or amendment or revision to the CDP.
Okay, thank you for that, Ms. Arciniaga. So it looks like if we just add, as Ms. Burkhart recommended, a condition of approval that the biologists look at the cypress, evaluate it for its appropriateness at the base of the slope, then we take it from there. Okay, I think that's good. Okay, now I wanted to follow up on the monitoring. If we can go to, can you pull up the conditions of approval, page 3 of 9? And I'll just continue on, maybe while Ms. Burkhart's doing that. Number 10, development within Coastal Bluff Edge Development Buffer. Sorry, okay, let's go get it first. It's page 14 of the staff, of the whole report. Ah, there it is, okay. Okay, so I'm down at development within the Coastal Bluff Edge Development Buffer. And condition C says, removal of the improvements is required when erosion reaches less than 5 feet from the improvements, or if the improvements are otherwise deemed unusable or unsafe due to imminent threat of damage or destruction from geologic instability, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm just saying, the word removal is so final. and I'm saying that I'm wondering if we can have a reevaluation by a certified environmental professional or biologist and potential removal if, you know, in other words, they may decide that it is within 5 feet and that there's other methodology that can be imposed that would save it. So are you following me?
Through the chair, Commissioner Wiscombe, yes, I do follow. That language comes from the our coastal land use plan policies pertaining to improvements close to the bluff edge. The policy itself is written, it's intended to apply to minor improvements within 5 feet of a bluff edge on a typical, not sea ledge lane, but a typical bluff top lot, where within the development buffer, it's essentially no development. However, you can do minor improvements, and that's defined within 5 feet. Within 10 feet of the bluff edge. But once erosion occurs to the point that it's 5 feet, it requires they be removed. So this is a condition of approval to mirror that policy. It also applies here because we're already on the bluff face. But I did suggest a change to that same condition for the other project you have. So if you can give me a second, I can compare and suggest how I might suggest editing it
Okay.
to
'Cause
apply.
I mean, on this project, we started out with one section and then did another section and another section, right? So it seems to me that the removal is just could be too drastic when there's other solutions, and that we could just have a reevaluation and potential removal.
Understood.
Yeah. Okay. And then the other one, which I know is in our LCP, is the next one. The approval of the improvements is limited to a maximum of 20 years from date of issuance of the coastal development permit. Shall be removed unless reevaluation of the site shows improvements still meet the standards. Okay, that one's good. That's kind of the language I wanted to put in the other one, is that, you know, shall be removed unless reevaluation of the site shows improvements. So, okay, and then let me see if I have anything else. Ms. Burkhart, where did you want to add that condition for the cypress? Is there a place?
I was looking maybe at C1.
I'm
under
sorry?
Design review. Let's see. Maybe here, under design review, appropriate plants on the bluff face.
Oh, that's
Maybe I can make it a number 2 to that.
Okay, so that you just make that a second condition of that? Is that right, for the cypress?
That sounds good to me. Does that sound appropriate,
Huh?
Ms. Arciniaga?
Yes, I think that's an appropriate.
Under design review, right? Yeah, I mean, the first, number 1 is appropriate plants on the bluff face, so it seems to me this fits in perfectly right there.
And the timing is kind of the next step in the process. If the CDP is approved, then we move forward to design review. So that allows us to address this pretty soon. Also, so I like it for that reason as well.
Okay. So you want it addressed before it goes back to SFDB, is that right?
Correct, because they would ultimately approve the landscape plan.
Right,
so-
okay. So would you stipulate that here then? Is it appropriate to, okay. Okay. So it would be prior to returning to, the project is subject to approval by SFDB. After evaluation of the cypress at the base of the slope.
Correct.
By a
It's
certified,
the second sentence is, SFDB shall not grant project design approval until the following Planning Commission land use conditions have been satisfied. So it
good.
would be within that timing.
Okay, great. I hate to get in the weeds so much, but, and the other, just one more question, on page 19 of the report, it's page 8 of 9 on the C of A. It says prior conditions. So planning, and it cites 2 planning commission resolutions. Are these the ones that came before this project came in, or before this one?
Can you remind?
There's no conflicts, I'm just making sure there's no conflicts between these resolutions and what you are asking us to do today.
Can you remind me the page number you just gave me?
I'm sorry?
The page number again?
Oh, it's page 19 of the report and 8 of 9 of the C of A.
Down one.
Page 19.
There it is, right there. It's just the 2 planning commission resolutions that were before this one. So they were the ones that related to this project, the other facets of this project?
No, I believe that's related to the
Pardon?
construction of those residences on those properties. One is from 2019 and one is from 2015. Is that what? Yeah, so it's
That-
the
that
construction of the residences. So any conditions associated with construction of those residences are still in effect. This would just be an addition to.
When did the Coastal Act go into effect? Weren't the residences built before the Coastal Act? That's my understanding.
Not all of them, but a majority of those Sea Ledge Lane residences were. But these 2, 3405 is up off of Cliff Drive, and there is a lot of bluff top on that lot. That's where the residence was built. The one below this slide is a newer construction.
Okay.
I see the city administrator, one keep coming up. Is it you?
I'm sorry?
Sorry, somebody keeps flashing on.
Oh,
here,
it was
so I
me.
just-
Through the chair, Commissioner Wiscombe, I'm not sure exactly all the permits of the residents there, but just to be clear, that it was only in more recent history that Sea Ledge Lane was deemed to be on the bluff face. Prior to our more recent coastal LUP, it was an assessment done on a case-by-case basis, determined by each geologist at the time. And some geologists argued, depending on the profile of that particular part of the bluff, was the bluff edge lower or higher? In our current LCP, the Coastal Commission and the city and other agencies made a definition of bluff face and established that for a bluff face line for us. So it's no longer a case-by-case determination. It's now been certified by the Coastal Commission, and that certification included basically designating that Sea Ledge Lane as all bluff face. But prior, there were determinations that some had a lower bluff edge, if you will, lower meaning closer to the beach itself. So that could have played into why they were just permitted
So when
over
they
the years.
implemented the LiDAR, and we now have a
The LiDAR, and then also the definition itself, because before there was argument that
yeah.
multiple bluff edges can occur.
Exactly.
And then the Coastal Commission clarified, we're going to use one bluff edge.
Yes. Bless them for that. Okay.
Yeah, so it's made our life simpler, but it could have played into why these houses have been
Okay.
permitted over the years.
That makes much more sense. Okay, I get that. And at the relief of my fellow commissioners, that's the end of my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Wiscombe. Commissioner Barnwell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to come at this from primarily the
comments by my esteemed colleague, Mr. Balke, which has to do with how is all this being done, and who's monitoring it, and who's paying for it. I don't want to go deep into it, but my profession finds myself in the Superior Court in front of several judges arguing over how road maintenance agreements work. And the preponderance of them were written a long time ago associated with farmers. And if something needed to be done, everybody kicked in and they maintained the road. Last week, we had an applicant who told us that that road maintenance agreement, an old-timey one, found that the members of it were not all ponying up their monetary contribution, and indeed the remedy is to sue them, to take them to court. We are now have in front of us what I consider a public trust issue. This is the coastline, this is the ocean. So these agreements that I'm looking at right here do not even come close to what we need in terms of teeth. My own model that I think does work, but I don't know if you guys agree, is the one that's in a homeowners association for condominiums, where a monthly or a quarterly dollar amount is set aside, and then when it comes time to need to spend it, the money is there. The expenditure of money, as I read this document, keeps coming up again and again in sentences like, owners shall maintain the drainage system. I don't think these owners are engineers, so they'll have to engage someone to make sure that it's being maintained, and that someone will need to be paid. So I think it's important that whatever maintenance agreement we put down on this road actually has some financial teeth to it to make sure not that they intend to pay, but they have begun to make payments quarterly so that there's actually a fund that can be used. I don't think the remedy for failure to pay should be a civil lawsuit to get people to pay. I think we will have not done our duty as a planning commission if we allow that to proceed. And it also doesn't include just simply the money, but it includes whose decision is it to do that. Now, you had mentioned that some of the biology will be monitored by the private organization, but they want to get a check for their work too, and it might slip up for them. So someone needs to stay on top of this, because this is a super important coastal bluff that we're looking at. It's already slipped away. And there's two houses on the upside that are really close to the bluff. A little bit of slip in the soil, and they're going to come crashing down. So I'd like to tighten some of the ways we're talking about this. And then I just have a question insofar as just language on page, I guess it's page 14. Let me just find it a minute, because it's an odd use of the English language. Oh, and go back to, I doubled down on what Leslie was saying earlier about, Ms. Wiscombe was saying about the maintenance, and maybe removal is not necessarily what we want to do. Bear with me just a second. I'll find it in another point. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Barnwell. Commissioner DeLuccio.
I think I'm almost into deliberations at this point. Such good questions were asked. And I actually, for the resolution, I did have a question, because I know we're talking about the monitoring. On page 12 of 58 of the staff report of the resolution, on page 12 on the bottom under 3, landscape plan compliance, towards the bottom it talks about who's in charge of the, responsible for the compliance, and it says, so it has a word in there, managing members. Do you see that word in there, the third from the bottom? What is it seemed like kind of awkward that was put in there. What does that mean?
It's Chair Wardlow
Yeah.
to Commissioner DeLuccio. It's when you have a limited liability company, the person that manages it is called the managing member.
Oh, it's something new I learned.
Yeah.
Terrific. But Thank you for doing such a thorough report, I have to say that. And the other thing was, I did, sometimes when resolutions are called out, I know you probably read these resolutions, if you put them in here, you found them, you identified them, it would be good to maybe attach them so we all can take a look at them, because I'm not walking away with confidence that exactly what those resolutions are and what they contain. It's nice to punch everything together in general conditions, but I'm not sure of the relevance of them as part of what was before us today, but I'll just leave it at that, because I would like to have seen those resolutions perhaps, so we could have read them. And I'm also satisfied, I was also concerned about the necessity of the cable guard railing, and I'm very pleased about the condition that we came up with today to address that. So that's all I have right now.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Lucio. Commissioner Peterson.
Thank you, and thank you to staff for all the work that you've done on this. I have a question in the conditions of approval. We've been on this page 14, 10B. I'm trying to understand this. I really, maybe I don't get it. 10 is the development within coastal bluff development, the erosion control system, hydro seeding, road repairs, and new fencing shall be subject to the following conditions. B, no mechanized construction equipment. What does that mean? Can we not use like mechanized construction equipment on road repairs?
Ms. Arciniega.
Through the chair, Commissioner Peterson. Similarly, that's a part of the same condition that applies to the policy speaking to development, minor improvements within 5 foot of a proper bluff edge that would have otherwise not been permitted, but because they're minor in nature, they're allowed for a period of time until they're deemed unsuitable. And the premise behind allowing them is that they're installed with hand tools only as to not disrupt the stability of that area since it is sensitive. So this condition, again, is written to reflect that exact policy and in those improvements. If I don't know if my hand gestures will help, but so those are intended for improvements above us, if even on a proper bluff edge, and we're way below it. So this is still within that sensitive area. So that's why the condition in a general sense applies. But I think it can and should be tailored to this project a little more than it has been. In addition to the other edits that we that I would suggest. So we don't want I still think we don't want mechanized equipment on the slope itself, but I think the road repair is appropriate, given that it's already a road and does require that, and that's the scope of the ask, and that has been studied by the geologist and geotechnical engineer. So I would edit that to allow for no mechanized construction equipment shall be used for, like outside the road repair, maybe, like just a descriptor of where we want it. And then, if I may, on condition C, the way we had kind of tailored it to the project you'll see next is removing when erosion reaches less than 5 feet from the improvement, because it's already more closer than 5 feet of the bluff edge, so that doesn't make sense. So we can take that part out, and then, in my opinion, and then D, again, this policy and condition was intended towards minor improvements that wouldn't have a typical lifespan. So the idea is like planter things, like planter boxes, small patio furniture and things like that installed, or pavers installed at the bluff edge, and as they would erode away, you would pull them out. And that those would have a shorter lifespan than a house, a structural element that's expected to be closer to 75 years typically. So the 20 years was to say these are things that are probably going to not have a very long lifespan. Let's pull them out as they age and degrade. Again, that's not so appropriate here for a road, right? So I think, in my opinion, I would also just strike out Part D of that condition.
Okay, thank you. And then can I keep asking questions?
Yes.
All right. When we toured the site, there were metal beams or, going into the bedrock. This is not talking about that, because if we're limiting mechanized equipment just to, or preventing mechanized equipment just for the bluff, doesn't there have to be some mechanized equipment to do some of that work?
For the nails.
Yeah.
I'm familiar with their installation. Then yes.
Okay. I'm reading this and it seems
Yeah.
contradictory to like what we saw there. So just bringing that up.
Maybe we can say beyond the scope that has been approved. The idea is that you don't want grading or further, or we could strike it all, altogether. We can give it some thought if you want.
Okay.
Did you say, or we could just strike that component?
Or maybe like specify it just for like 5 feet within or 10 feet, whatever that buffer is from the bluff itself, above the bluff.
So I'll draw your attention to the beginning of the condition of 10 is that it is specifying the erosion control, like the project elements. So the erosion control system, hydro seeding, road repairs, and new fencing shall be subject to the following conditions. So it's limiting to the work we're already doing, which already requires mechanized equipment. So maybe it's not appropriate.
Commissioner Wiscombe?
Yeah, I think it's appropriate to leave it in there because there are portions of the work that you do not want to use mechanized equipment. But I think what I would probably do is no mechanized construction equipment shall be used for installation or removal unless specifically endorsed is the wrong word, but approved by the certified biologist, or whoever it is, or whoever the environmental people are that are doing the work. Because you're not going to be, Commissioner Peterson is right. If they ask for another 2 nails in that slope, you're going to use mechanized equipment. Those things go in, 25 feet.
Commissioner Wiscombe, through
Yes.
the chair, if we were going to do that, I like it, but I would suggest that if the exception for the mechanical equipment would be approved by either the community development director or the public works director.
Okay, that's fine, yeah, that's great. Yeah, okay. I just, and I want to just make a comment on C, which is removal of the improvements is required. That's way too harsh, I think. We don't know in the future what sort of technology they're going to have to stabilize these bluff faces. So I think you've got to say reevaluation and possibly removal is going to be required, will be required. And then maybe, again, under the direction of community development director or public works director. I just think we need to cover ourselves, so we. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Wiscombe. Commissioner Peterson, is that done?
Yes, I'm done, and I agree with what Commissioner Wiscombe said.
Thank you both for your questions and comments on this aspect. I will now go to Commissioner Bauke.
Yeah, I was going to look back on the sentence that I referenced before, which is actually the same sentence in which Mr. DeLuccio referenced that had the term managing member in it, which is the entity that manages an LLC. If you read that, it says those folks, the Kibo, is it 8,000, or I can't read it well, LLC, David and Barbara Milan, managing members, shall be responsible for said monitoring. And when it says that, I took that as they're the ones using the word very literally, responsible, not financially responsible, that they're in charge. So that wording doesn't work for me. If they were financially responsible, which is what Ms. Bickhart said, we should say financially responsible and have the party that is responsible for the monitoring being referenced as to the biologist that's selected by the city. So I think we need to do some wordsmithing on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bauke. And thank you to all of my fellow commissioners. These were really good questions. I also kind of share the sentiment of Commissioner Bauke and Commissioner Barnwell in regards to just how expensive this is for the applicant in terms of the responsibilities that they have in this process. Could I just, do you guys have a rough estimate of like what this costs for the applicant to be, monitoring and responsible for this in certain ways? Not the monitoring of the soil, but just like the process of, coming back to the city and addressing different issues.
Chair Wardlow, I don't have a number for you, and Ms. Jones said they don't have a contract in place yet to have that information available.
I was just wondering. I don't know if I'm allowed to ask that.
Yeah, so, Chair Wardlow, with respect to paragraph 3, if I understand from Ms. Burkhart, it's the LLC is the financial, I think we could say, Cubo LLC is responsible for financing said monitoring, and a qualified biologist or expert will monitor the project.
Okay. That sounds good to me. Checking if staff is taking notes on these specific condition edits. Wonderful. Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any other further questions? Okay, we will now move to deliberations. Does anyone have any comments? Commissioner Bauke.
I just got one comment. I definitely support this project, and it's, it's unfortunate that this slide situation happened, and, we've learned a lot about bluff retreat over the years, and, the fact that it happened isn't surprising, honestly. You've got situations of cliffs falling on UP railroads down in the San Diego County area now that nobody ever expected. So, doing this was a good thing. The emergency permit and all that process the city did to stabilize, it's great. The technology that's being used is the appropriate, not cheap, but the appropriate state-of-the-art technology to keep the hill. We hope it works. And that's the reason for my concern about the monitoring process, making sure it actually is successful. Because the amount of damage and economic damage that could happen if this slope continues to fail is pretty significant. And I think it was nice to see the property owners work together on that. I thought it was sort of interesting that one of them complained that they shored up part of their property and they weren't included. And, I thought that was very strange that they were concerned. I almost volunteered, hey, please do mine too, and as far as you can. But I'm very supportive of all these minor technical corrections to the conditions that my fellow commissioners and myself have brought forth. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bauke. Commissioner Wiscombe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I definitely support the project, particularly with the changes that my fellow commissioners have made to the conditions of approval. I think we've added some flexibility and also tightened them up. So I think that's very appropriate. And I want to thank Ms. Burkhart for the excellent report. It was really very thorough. It's a very complicated project. I kind of wrote out the timeline on when, how many different things have gotten done. It started back in 2023, July of 2023, and went to September of 2024, and I have like 10 things here that have happened. So you did a really good job with that. So, and as far as I know, that we're going to change the landscape plan compliance on page 12 with some language, and then on page 14, we're going to change the mechanized equipment, and then C, the re-eval, and then on page 15, we're going to change we're going to add a section for design review for the the cypress. And I think that was all the changes, but I definitely support all those changes. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Wiscombe. Commissioner Peterson.
I'll be very quick. I want to echo what was said. Thank you very much for the report and for all the work that you've done on this, and for even just arranging for our visit there. It was a little complicated. I'm grateful for your taking the amendments to make sure that specifically Section 10 is flexible enough for the success of this, and I support the project. Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner Peterson. Commissioner DeLuccio.
Yeah, I support the project, and I'm glad that it started with 1-year monitoring, and then you brought it up to 5 years monitoring, biannual, twice annual, they had to do the report. We've actually seen 3 reports so far, and my understanding is it'll be extended even further if need be, beyond the 5 years conditioned in there. So I want to thank my fellow commissioners for coming up with all these little additions or tweaks to the conditions, and also managing members, you have that also, we're changing that also to read differently, right? We're taking that word out, managing members, or not?
No.
No, we need to keep the managing members, but we were going to change and add, I think, that they were financing the monitoring.
So we're going to sort of define them better, who they are, make it more clear.
We're defining the role that they're having.
The roles,
Yeah.
okay, terrific. So I'm supportive.
Wonderful. I see City Administrator up.
Not City Administrator, but PC Liaison. Chair Wardlow, I just would like to clarify that the commission is also supportive of editing, removing Part D of Condition 10. That's referring to the time limit of 20 years, considering the scope of these improvements.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Barnwell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm completely supportive of the project, and super important. That cliff is an important cliff for everybody, including the road along the top edge, if not the private property owners. I had a question from Mr. Osmer. In our Community Development Department requirements, it says that evidence of a private road maintenance agreement, and then the sentence refers to agreement for maintenance is in italics, like it's referencing, it's page 16 of 58. And I'm wondering, is that a specific agreement of maintenance that we already have drafted? And does it include some of these issues associated with maintenance that we've been discussing? The reason I ask that question is because the agreements of maintenance that have come across my path in the last 3 or 4 years in courtroom trials have been a very, very old, documented, same set of paragraphs. And I just wondered if we're referencing that here, or if we are going to draft a maintenance agreement that fits all of our comments. Do you see what I'm referencing on page 1658, item 2B?
Yeah, Commissioner
Okay.
Barnwell, through the chair, I do see it, and I think it's referencing the public works requirements that are in Section E, and I'm trying to go back to find the Section E so that I can answer your question.
Because I think we've all agreed for this particular project, that old-timey way of doing it might not be sufficient, cover enough of the issues. But I will leave that to your judgment. It's not something we have to answer right now. I just wanted to bring it up. Thank you, Madam Chair, and I'm supportive of the project all the way. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Barnwell. I'm supportive of the project. I appreciate the work that staff and the applicant has done. Obviously, addressing erosion on the slopes is very important. I think this is a good example of, the applicant coming proactively addressing these issues, and then the commission working to really solidify this in a way that it will work for the long-term future of how they can have as much flexibility as possible when addressing this. So I'm supportive of the project, can make the findings, and appreciate everyone's hard work on this. With that, Commissioner Wiscombe.
Make a motion if
Okay,
you want.
there we go.
Since I think I have it all together now, so let me just go back to, okay, so I move that we make the recommended findings on page 11 of 58 in section 9 of the report, which are environmental review, that it's exempt from the determination of exemption is appropriate. So, and B, the coastal development permit, it's consistent with the California Coastal Act and the local coastal plan. And with the following amendments and additions to the conditions, Planning Commission conditions of approval. The first one would be, and correct me, just jump in here if I get this wrong. The first one would be on page 1 of the conditions of approval, B3, under landscape plan compliance, and the sentence about if performance standards are not met at the end of 5 years, the monitoring period shall be extended in consultation with the city. Kibo 6000 LLC, David and Barbara Moline, managing members, shall be responsible for financing said monitoring. And I think Ms. Ostringer inserted a certified biologist is responsible for the.
A qualified biologist or other expert, which,
Sorry, I thought the direction was to have it be the community development director or public works director if appropriate, rather than an expert.
That's fine. I think Ms. Ostringer used the biologist, but, no, you don't want them responsible for the monitoring. You want a certified consultant who is responsible for the monitoring. These are, people are financing the monitoring,
Correct.
but you want a certified, and I'm looking for the biologist, or? is that
Oh,
what you
sorry,
want?
for the
Yeah.
monitoring
Yeah.
of the slope.
Yeah.
Yes, that is correct. Sorry,
Yeah, okay, responsible for said monitoring.
yeah,
Okay.
I think a certified expert, because it may be a geologist
Fine, yeah,
as
it could be
well.
a geologist, yeah, okay. Okay, so that takes care of that one. Then on to page 14. We are on, this is page 3 of the conditions of approval. 10B, no mechanized construction equipment shall be used for installation or removal unless, I think, Ms. Ostringer, I said it, but you said that was good. I think I said unless approved by the community development or public works director. Does that work?
Yes.
Good, okay. Okay, and then the next one, C, reevaluation or removal of the improvements, and I'm just kind of winging this, will be at the direction from the community development director or public works director as required if the improvements are otherwise blah, 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 blah. Is that good?
Could I, Commissioner Wiscombe, could I suggest this
Yes.
language, removal of the improvements may be required by the Public Works or Director or Community Development Director when erosion reaches less than blah, blah, blah. I think the may be required.
I had will be required, but I also had reevaluation there because there may be new techniques. So reevaluation or removal of the improvements will be required at direction from the community development director or public works director.
If I can jump in, I would say, I would use may, because what shall is an absolute. It doesn't give flexibility. That's not a, is that
Well,
what you're?
they have to be reevaluated. This is about them getting reevaluated. So if it reaches,
You're
or we're
saying
taking out that part.
may be required? It's gonna, wait, oh, no, it is, okay, whatever.
I think we should leave in when erosion reaches less than, the trigger is when the erosion reaches less than 5 feet from the improvements, or if the improvements are otherwise deemed unusable or unsafe. So I think reevaluation is important to add. That's my thing, okay?
Agree.
Okay. And then we are eliminating section D, 10D in its entirety. And then the next change is on page 4 of the conditions of approval under C, design review. And we're adding a number 2 to that, and it will be We should probably have a term, is it a biologist or is it a certified, Ms. Burkhart, what do you want to use that's going to analyze the cypress? Do you have a sentence for there?
Commissioner Wiscombe, my thinking was to have Storer do it as part of the assessment they've already done and maybe add.
Yeah, but we have
onto
to,
that.
they may not be around or,
Yeah, we could-
although they are under, you have to have that done before the.
Could word it as a qualified
Yeah.
biologist,
Yeah.
have a
okay.
qualified biologist assess the appropriateness of those
She'll
plants remaining.
analyze the previously planted cypress at the base of the slope and assess its appropriateness is all I can think of, but.
Commissioner Wiscombe, through the chair, the first sentence of the other one already says that special attention shall be paid to the appropriateness of the existing and proposed plant material on the bluff face. So we can say including the cypress tree should, and then all new plantings. I think maybe we can say all new and existing plantings. Oh. My thought is that it actually could be attached to that first sentence because it's already asking
except-
STORE to do that assessment.
Except this isn't part of really that native mix with the aster and everything else. This is something that the owner put in. So I think we need to have it separated out. And we need to have it evaluated before, and Ms. Burkhart, I think, said that, evaluated before it goes back to single-family design board. So I think we need just to call attention to
Okay.
that.
So evaluation of the cypress tree.
Cypress plantings I'd put in probably, yeah.
Planting.
Yeah.
The cypress-
Along the toe of the slope, shall be evaluated by certified biologists prior to single-family design board action on the project, final action on the project. Is that okay?
Chair Wiscombe.
Thank you, Commissioner Wiscombe.
And through the chair, I just noticed that, and thank you, Commissioner Barnwell, for bringing it up, but on page 16, 2B, evidence of the road maintenance, and it referenced section E. The reason I couldn't find it is because section E does not appear to be in here.
Because what?
Okay.
Section
Thank
E
you.
is there, but it is not the Public Works section that it typically would be,
Correct.
because this is a private road.
Yeah.
So is, Ms. Arciniega, is there a way to fix that?
My suggestion, if we're keeping the road maintenance agreement in, would just be to remove the reference to section E and have that be one of, have the requirement stand alone. I need to find the page again. Apologies.
Yeah, excuse me, I would just say, private road agreement for maintenance as required by the Public Works Department prior to permit issuance. Is that okay? And then get
Great.
rid of
I like
section
that.
E. Okay.
Can I second that motion?
Great.
Could you repeat the motion? Excuse me.
All right, roll call vote.
Commissioner Wiscombe, can I just confirm, did we land on will be required when we were bouncing between will be and may be on the one? I think you decided formally on will be.
Are we on the
That's the-
reevaluation one?
That was, yeah, the reevaluation.
Okay, reevaluation or removal of the improvements will be at the direction from the.
Will be. That's
Yeah, at
not
the-
me. Okay,
Yeah,
I just
will
wanted to
be at the-
confirm that.
Yeah, or the Public Works Director, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. I will begin the vote with Commissioner Wiscombe,
Yes.
Commissioner Barnwell,
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson,
Yes.
Commissioner Balke,
Yes.
Commissioner DeLuccio,
Yes.
and Chair Wardlow.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, everybody. It's been requested that we take a 5-minute break. Is that all right with folks? All right, we will reconvene at 2:10-ish. our Planning Commission hearing at 2:12 PM. And we are now on to the new item B, 3429C Ledge Lane. The proposed project consists of hardscape and landscape improvements and to address violations identified in enforcement cases. We have Kathleen Kennedy, project planner, with us to provide a brief staff presentation. Ms. Kennedy, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. Kathy Kennedy, project planner for this project. The address is 3429 Sea Ledge Lane. Here is a vicinity map showing the location, just like your previous project, Sea Ledge Lane. So in yellow is the project site location. The blue line is the bluff edge that you're familiar with. We'll be talking more about that. Here's the project site in an aerial photograph. Again, the project site in red. This shows the existing residential development all along Sea Ledge Lane. And again, the blue line represents the bluff edge. A little background, the project site has 2 enforcement cases against it. The first one, a deteriorating septic tank. There was a report prepared by Santa Barbara County regarding an inspection report that noted that there were some holes and things in the tank that need to be fixed. This is one of 3 tanks on site. And then another enforcement case regarding the unpermitted retaining wall and the unpermitted concrete driveway. During review of the project, we looked into the archive records to determine which existing improvements were actually received the proper approvals, and we did discover other unpermitted improvements that were done, so those were incorporated into the project. And I'll go over the proposed project now and the actions required. This is a coastal development permit, so your approval would be to allow the development in the appealable jurisdiction of the coastal zone, and also to affirm the SEQA determination that it's exempt from further environmental review pursuant to SEQA guidelines section 15301, which is in regard to existing facilities, and that at a later date, the project design approval and final approvals would be granted by the Single Family Design Board. Here is the site plan. I'll go over the different items for this. So the project includes a number of items. They're all listed in your staff report. A new concrete driveway here with new flagstone. If you can see my cursor. Then here to the side of the building, side entrance, there's a concrete patio that'll be reconfigured. Doesn't show it here, but there is a water fountain structure to be removed here. There are 2 door landings that are part of the project, here and here on the back. Over here is an existing concrete patio, and that would be removed and replaced with gravel. There's an outdoor fireplace to be removed right here. This curved area shows a new stacked wall. What's existing now is a concrete bench and wall, and that will be removed and replaced with this stacked wall. And then along here, this length, right before it kind of slopes down further towards the beach, is the existing retaining wall, unpermitted, that replaced the split rail fencing. So that was put in, and this was evaluated and determined that it needed to be reinforced, and we'll talk more about that. Also, there's a gazebo, though I did notice it was gone at the site visit. That was located here in the corner. That was essentially just on top of the ground. Looks like that's been removed already. And a couple of other little pavers are to be added here and here. Switch to the drainage plan. So there's a bioretention planter box proposed right here. The runoff from the roof will be moved to that area, and then from there would go to the existing pipe, and that existing pipe daylights down at the beach. So all of this would continue through the existing drainage system on site. Here are some site photographs. To the bottom right here is a photo of, let me see if I can make it a little bigger. This is the drainage pipe down at the the foot of the bluff here. Show you the door landings here. Moving over to, this is the bench and the wall that will be removed. You see there's this lower area. This was existing for many, many, many years, so prior to the Coastal Act, I believe. And we feel like that's, grandfathered in, can remain, these steps can remain, but this is more new to be removed. This is the outdoor fireplace here also to be removed. And here is that retaining wall, here and here, so there'll be a grade beam added to that and some drilled piers to stabilize this. Here's the landscape plan. The existing plantings below the wall area will remain. There'll be new plantings, removal of a lot of the high water use lawn and replacement with low water use lawn and lower water use plants throughout. For the irrigation plan, again, this is on the bluff face, so we're not, or owners aren't allowed to have permanent irrigation. So there's just irrigation temporarily to establish the plants. They're to be not in ground, but to be above ground, and have a shut-off valve as well in case there are issues with overwatering. We'll switch to design review. This project did go to consent back in June, and it was favorably received. And they concluded that the project is ready for project design approval, as shown. Again, it's a project site in the coastal zone. We talked about the bluff edge, again shown in blue. Project site is on the bluff face. There are specific coastal policies that address parcels and lots on the bluff face. So it's very important in terms of which policies apply, since it is on the bluff face. There are specific policies associated with Sea Ledge Lane. Most of the existing development on Sea Ledge Lane is non-conforming to policy 5.1-32. That policy states that essentially nothing is allowed on the bluff face except public trails, habitat restoration, some minor drainage systems, and potentially some slope stabilization devices or slope protection devices would be allowed. So here we have a site that does not conform to this. Obviously, there's a residence on that home, and we're limited to what we could allow on that site. It's the goal of the city to remove as many structures as possible from the bluff face. However, a reduction in standards may be allowed for severely constrained lots like this. So we do allow a home to be on the site, and we allow other improvements if certain findings can be made. And one of the main findings are a list, and they're included in your staff report, is that the development will not create or contribute significantly to erosion or geologic instability. So this project is removing a number of improvements from the bluff face that we are considering not to be essential. So the concrete patio, the concrete bench and wall I mentioned, that outdoor fireplace, water fountain, the gazebo, and then the high water use lawn. In regard to the retaining wall, this is considered a slope stability or stabilization device. So this was evaluated by in a geotechnical report. It was determined that it should be reinforced with the grade beam and drilled piers to provide the stability to the slope there in that location. And this whole process of going through evaluation and looking at the hazards and how they should be addressed are addressed in a number of policies. So I have included, I believe there's 15 pages of policies attached to your report. So I'm not going to go through all those, but some are listed here about how this project is in compliance with all these coastal policies. These all related to coastal hazards. Also, landscaping and watering is limited on the bluff face, but they are allowed to have, like I said earlier, no in-ground irrigation systems, but to have a temporary irrigation system to help with plant establishment. So that's part of the project, and they would be consistent with this policy here in regard to that. They're usually using 94% low water use plants and then 6% medium water use plants. And the drainage system that I went over is allowed. This policy does state that existing drainage systems should be phased out and removed to the maximum extent feasible. But you were on the site, this drainage cannot be moved toward inward toward the land. There's nowhere for it to go where it could go to like a road and then go to a storm drain. This is not possible in this location. So the existing drainage pipe will remain, and as I said before, the downspouts and the new bioretention planter box will be connected to that drainage line. There are a number of conditions of approval that are related to coastal hazards. Typically in this location, in regard to the removal of damage or unsafe development, if that occurs, removal of debris, if there are issues with that related to erosion. No new shoreline protective devices are allowed or slope stability devices allowed, although that retaining wall is considered a slope stabilization device, and that, of course, is part of this project. And then an acknowledgement of the risks by the owner. I did want to mention, because I was listening to your other project, we do have a condition development within the bluff face. Refer you to page 12 of 34 in regard to the no mechanized equipment. So I'd like to change this to read, no mechanized construction equipment shall be used for installation or removal except for the installation of the grade beam and piers, which of course would be required to stabilize that and to make that more stable in that area. Also, I think the removal of the concrete patio and bench, though theoretically could be removed without mechanical, I think in this case, it could be used in that case. You know, the minimal amount of, you don't want, a backhoe going in there, but you could have mechanized equipment that's a little bit more, less kind of invasive, I guess, of that area. But, so I'd like to change that to allow that mechanized equipment for those three items. If you agree, we can make that change. Switch to environmental review. As I said, this qualifies for an exemption under the existing facilities. That allows for operation, repair, maintenance, permitting, or minor alterations of existing private structures. This has no expansion of the existing or former use. The findings required are in regard to environmental review, the determination of exemption, and then the coastal development permit policies, consistent with the policies related to coastal hazards, which I went over. I didn't go over the scenic resources and visual quality or water quality, but they are in your staff report and listed in the policy section. The project is consistent with all applicable policies of the coastal plan. And I have a recommended motion here. Staff recommends you approve the project, making the findings for the secret exemption and the coastal development permit as outlined in the staff report dated August 14th, 2025, and subject to the conditions of approval as outlined in the staff report with those minor changes to condition B11. Thank you. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kennedy. Do we have an applicant presentation today, or would the applicant like to say any words? Wonderful. Please state your full name and relationship to the project, and you will have 15 minutes to present. Any remaining time we can offer back later on.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Jaime Limon, and I'm the project planner for this project. So for those of you who don't know me, I have some experience working with the city. I retired in 2017, actually prior to the adoption of these policies. And I'm, I guess, fortunate or unfortunately, one of the few planners that worked as a planner that presented a project along the street to the Planning Commission and has worked now as an applicant planner. Different hat, still understand the issues for the street. Since over the 30 years I worked for city, I saw a lot of development on coastal bluffs, permitted and unpermitted. And obviously, you don't want to get involved with a project that's as-built. That's something that I wouldn't advise any property owner. I was not involved when this project began, and I was asked by the property owner to sort of navigate through the process, because these new policies are complex. The city raised the bar, and it's very clear that there were policies adopted to try to discourage certain types of development and to ensure that these properties are not expanded, I think, and developed in a overdevelopment on this property, on these parcels. But what I wanted to focus in on, rather than present the, I guess, the project itself, the staff has prepared an excellent report that explained to you the scope of the project, is sort of have you understand the perspective of the property owner and me as an applicant. So as I encountered these regulations, which I had no input on, unfortunately, I did understand the motivation for why the regulations were adopted. Clearly, we have to protect our coastlines. But what I also sort of missed was as Ms. Arciana explained, the case-by-case evaluation of previous projects. Now, I presented a new pool and a pool house on a property two places down on the street that was approved by the Planning Commission in 2000, I believe, 3. Definitely evaluated it in a different manner. And what I was asking staff to do when we presented this proposal is to take that approach and allow this development to remain, given the fact that this is a unique property in a sense. It's very vegetated on the downslope side. It's unique, and actually, when you look at the history of the site, looking through the property, you can actually see that the original geologist presented a case in 1999 to approve as-built additions on this property, which the Planning Commission approved. And in that presentation, the geologist stated that regarding the erosion potential, that on the sea cliff retreat, that they predicted that it would take 41 years to meet the 50-foot setback or 75-year setback retreat line. That's the old way you used to do. You used to define a line, and that's your edge, and that's what you don't want, not any development. And I believe that in the last 25 years since that report, there really has been minimal impacts on this property. It's one of the fortunate properties that don't have a face and they've got a revetment wall at the bottom also, which is cited here as a benefit for the project. And in that respect, what this project encountered was policies that mandate a strengthening up to and a safety factor that's required the project to be redesigned and retrofitted. And now we have piers, caissons to strengthen this wall, which I believe is going to be one of the strongest walls constructed at that height. It's not a very tall wall. And we were advocating initially to staff that we would accept a condition that says we will remove it if for some reason it starts to fail. And that wasn't good enough. Based on the strict interpretation of these policies, we have to strengthen the wall. We're willing to do that. It's going to be additional cost to permit this, but I wanted to convey that to Mr. Newton wants everything permitted, and he's not here today because he's happened to schedule a vacation trip during this time, but he wanted to convey that he's in agreement with all the conditions proposed, and with respect to the last condition being amended, I think we are of the opinion that maybe handheld devices could be used to actually expedite the demolition versus bringing a big backhoe and so forth, which is it's constrained site anyways, but hopefully that understanding could be spelled out in the conditions. That's all I have for you, and thank you for your consideration.
Sorry. Thank you very much. We will now move on to public comment. Do we have any members of the public that would like to comment on this item?
Thank you, Chair Wardlow. At this time, I don't have any speaker slips for in-person public comment. We don't have anybody online, and we did not receive any written correspondence for this item, so I'm going to give it back to you.
Thank you. I will now open it up to my fellow commissioners for questions. Commissioner DeLucia.
Thank you. I want to thank the applicant for the history. I really appreciate hearing that. And I do have a question for staff. You called out 2 violations here. One was retaining wall, and the other was a septic tank. But how was the septic tank addressed in the, I didn't read more about it in the staff report.
I just included it in the list of items to be fixed, so it's on page 2 of the staff report. Other improvements include the new pavers and repairs to the existing septic tank.
Is it listed out, or is it all just combined together? I don't see it. It's on page 2, okay.
Page 2.
Oh, other improvements include.
Yeah.
Oh, I
it's
got
included
this. It's
there.
like lumped together.
And then it's also, yeah, in the background section on page 3.
Okay,
It's
because
mentioned there.
it seems like it's something, there's 3 tanks, correct? On
There are
site?
3, and there's one that needs.
One needs to, so I just thought, oh, okay. It's sort of buried together instead of called out separately, so
Yeah,
I
it
felt
is.
like it's kind of a prominent thing if it was part of a violation. So thank you for that clarification.
Thank you, Commissioner DeLucia. Commissioner Wiscombe?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Kennedy, I just had one question. On your proposal to change 11B, you talked about the grade beam, except for installation of the grade beam, the demolition of the concrete patio. Is that another one? And what was the third one? You said there were 3.
The concrete bench.
Ah, good, okay, okay. And then, since I have you, do you want to comment on Mr. Limon's comment on handheld mechanical devices? Do you want to put something about they're encouraged, or?
We could, because that's where we were talking about that. That would be a way. Yeah, we want to limit the mechanical equipment, so handheld.
Handheld mechanical devices are encouraged, or?
Yeah.
Or do you want,
We
do you
could
want the community development director?
No.
Okay.
I don't want to get too
Okay.
involved in that one.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you're all right then with handheld mechanical devices are encouraged wherever possible, or, yeah, wherever feasible?
For those,
Okay.
I would list those 3 items, though. Installation of the grade beam and piers, and then removal of the patio, concrete patio and concrete bench. As-
You'd list them out?
I would list them.
Yeah,
'cause-
okay. Thank you so much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Wiscombe. Do we have any other questions from our fellow commissioners? All righty. We'll now move on to deliberations. If anyone has any comments. Commissioner Wiscombe.
Sorry. I support the project. It's great to see a cleanup project. Enforcement projects are always kind of sad, but this one is, this one's pretty thorough on what staff is proposing to add to the enforcement list, and I think it's going to be a good project. I think with that change to 11B in the conditions of approval, on page 12, it's on page 4 of 8 in the conditions of approval, I think that is, that's a good change. And I want to thank staff for the very thorough report, and Mr. Limon too, for being there and providing us with the background. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Wiscombe. Anyone else? Well, thank you, staff. I greatly appreciate the efforts on the staff report. I think this was really helpful. And thank you to the applicant for coming to the site visit. It was a really beautiful site. It's great to see that these improvements are going to be made to get more aligned with the goals that we have to protect our community. So thank you for your efforts, and I can definitely make the findings and support the project. I will now hand it over to anyone else that would like to make comments. Commissioner Barnwell.
I was going to boldly make a motion. Is it time for a motion? Or no?
If anybody else has comments, okay, we can now move to a motion.
I recommend the motion on the screen, approve the project, findings of CEQA exemptions, and subject to conditions of approval as amended, which were just recently outlined by Ms. Wiscombe.
Does that suffice for staff?
Yes, very good.
Wonderful. Thank you,
Second.
Commissioner Barnwell. We have a second.
They seconded.
Can we please have roll call?
Thank you, Chair Wardlow. I'll begin with Commissioner DeLucia.
What are we voting? Oh, yes.
Commissioner Barnwell.
Yes.
Commissioner Wiscombe.
Yes.
Commissioner Valke.
Yes.
Commissioner Peterson.
Yes.
And Chair Wardlow.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Carmen, and thank you again to the applicant and all of your service to the city in the long term. And thank you, staff. This action by the commission is subject to a 10-calendar-day appeal period. We will now close this item and move on to the administrative portion of our agenda. Does anyone have any committee or liaison reports? Really moving fast at this part, guys. All right. If that is it, it is now, yep. Oh, sorry, Commissioner Barnwell. Sorry.
I've had 3 comments from the general public regarding parking and street sweeping parking and curb parking. And we've brought it up before, and I just wanted to say that I think the general public is looking for us to begin to address the parking issues, particularly in view of the fact that now parking is no longer required for any form of new construction. So I just wanted to let my fellow commissioners and the staff know that there are people wondering if we're going to do something, and so if we are, I stand ready to assist in that process. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Barnwell. Anyone else? All right. It is now 2:38, and that concludes our August 21st Planning Commission hearing. Our next hearing is tentatively scheduled for September 11th, 2025. Thank you all for being here, and have a wonderful rest of your day.